How's everybody doing? It's Cevan, aka the Monkas. Join with me today is Tyler, Reed, and our special guest for his team breakdown, Swirly. So let's get into episode 10 of Likely to Dispute.
So we don't have a question of the day today. We have two big trades to talk about. But first, welcome DaShaun to the pod. DaShaun, question I've always had for you: where the hell does Swirly come from?
So actually, middle school, a Roblox name. That's really it.
Big
Uh,
time.
yeah, it was just a random name I made up in like middle school, but kept it for fantasy for a long time. And
Yeah,
then,
Love it.
yep.
um, but yeah, nice to be on the pod. You guys have a good thing going here, so this is really cool.
So with the two new guys in the league, they asked me why the hell your name was Swirly, and I was like, I don't know. That's just DaShaun. He just goes by Swirly, so they just had to get used to it. Okay, two big trade. We'll jump into the first one, not related to our team breakdown. So first one, Cevan making a trade with Trent, which is always a good thing to happen. Cevan sent George Pickens and a 2027 first round pick to Trent for T. Higgins and a 2026 third round pick. So we'll start with Cevan. Give us your thoughts on the trade here. Someone finally took the bait on George Pickens. Unsurprisingly, it was Trent. Give us your side.
I wouldn't call it bait. You guys know I like George Pickens. But yeah, I'd been shopping him for the last week, 2 weeks. So he was just someone I was actively moving, and I was willing to package first round pick to up tier and receiver to bolster my floor. Um, so yeah, just went out, talked to Trent. We had a few different like trades drawn up around this. This is the one we settled on, but um, yeah, I mean, I went off. I kind of used DaShaun and Tyler's trade as a baseline. Um, so I mean, yeah, I think it just hired my floor. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I think all parties are happy. Maybe Trent realized uh maybe he didn't think his team was going to be able to compete this year, so why not add that future capital and still get a young receiver in return with potential. So
I
yeah,
believe
what are your guys' thoughts?
I believe the word you're looking for is raised your floor, not hired your floor. I don't think that's a word. So,
Higher is definitely a word, but
yeah, but hiring your floor doesn't make sense.
okay, well,
I hope that Ian comments
regardless,
on this as the weekly occurrence.
yeah.
Tyler, we'll start with you here. What are your thoughts on the trade?
Between Savon and Trent here.
Yeah, the one we're talking about right now, that one.
Okay, well just double checking here. Uh, I mean, I liked it for both sides. Like I said, I'm not a big Pickens fan, as we've discussed earlier on Savant's team breakdown. I know you aren't either. It is kind of interesting that Savant is willing to pair a 2027 first round pick, considering he's kind of been hyping up that draft class. So apparently he thinks he can potentially get a first round pick back somewhere in the future, or he feels good with his team and he's okay even if the draft class is good, not being able to select some of those top names. So, I mean, yeah, it really helps Savon quite a bit. I don't hate it for either side. I like it. I don't mind it.
Okay.
Let me comment on that real quick. As far as the 2027 draft class, my intentions have never been to specifically get 2027 picks. The reason I moved on from, notably, I traded my first over Robert's first, but we can get into that another time. But the reason I was willing to trade a pick is because that we still have to play two fantasy seasons before then, and the goal is to win championships. And if I can get a player to help me win a championship now, I would rather do that. And I also feel like I can get picks at any time if I want it. If I really wanted picks, I can get picks. So I'm not worried about uh I'm especially not worried about my 2027 first. So yeah, Reed.
Yeah, I'm T. Higgins is a tough one for me. I got burned from by him in redraft in 2022, and he would start games and not finish them or whatever. So honestly, I'm just a notorious T. Higgins hater, but I can't fault the player. Like top five wide receiver in points per game last year. So honestly, like the trade overall, I think is pretty fair. If I was Trent, I don't think I would have given up a third rounder back. But overall, a relatively fair trade, as Tyler noted, and I've noted. I'm not a Pickens fan, and the first round pick is a really good asset. I don't think Trent's team is in a spot to compete this year. So I don't mind the trade at all for him. And I don't think a 26-year-old receiver with some injury issues is going to help him a whole lot. So I don't mind the trade for either side. I hope T. Higgins gets hurt a lot for Cevan this year, so then my stack goes crazy with Jamar and Joe Burrow on the same page. So
Wow.
I know, sorry, I don't hope he gets hurt. That's very rude to say.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, no, I would never wish injury upon anybody, but I hope the week that I'm playing Cevan, he plays one snap and then gets hurt and doesn't play the rest of the game. That would be really nice.
or like maybe he has a kid or something that week.
Sure. If his timing was that poor, then I'll take it. DaShaun, do you have any thoughts on the trade here?
Um, I would say, yeah, I'm kind of surprised Cevan traded his. He was really hyping up that draft class, and the receivers especially and quarterbacks coming up next year as well. He's kind of taking a dip on his capital as when it comes to future like draft picks. I will say, um, I don't really like George Pickens, so I think I personally don't like the trade for Trent. Um, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't know how that's gonna look in Dallas. He didn't really shine too well last year. So I don't know. That's just nothing too crazy. I thought it was a fair trade, but I just don't like George Pickens. That's it.
Well, now we're figuring out why nobody took the bait on George Pickens because everybody here hates him. So,
Real
honestly,
quick,
okay, go
la
ahead.
closing thought on this is draft picks cannot help you win a championship. And so that's why I think three out of the four of us have no picks. So we're trying to win
Who
championships.
doesn't
So
have picks here?
I agree with that.
you, me,
I'm,
and Deshaun have like
I
no
have, I
picks.
am middle of the pack in picks, believe it or
I,
not.
I have no picks next year at
Yeah.
all.
You two combined have one fourth rounder next year. So, I
I have a
do
third
have,
now.
oh, that's true. Actually, yes. I'm middle of the pack in the league in terms of draft capital, which may not be the case if I package those picks, but right now I'm doing fine. Uh, my final thought is like the most boring blockbuster trade I could think of, just because everyone knew Savant was trying to trade Pickens. So like, I don't know. It definitely is above the threshold of a blockbuster, but I just kind of bored by it. I don't know why.
That's a good way to put it, actually.
This is my first share of T. Higgins ever. I've never had him on any roster at any point. So
T.
see
Higgins
how it
on
goes.
Tyler's all-time team. Tyler was in on him his rookie year.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll talk a little more briefly about this one because, as I said, we'll get into the main return for DaShaun here. But DaShaun acquired the great Zay Flowers from Tyler for Christian Kirk, a 2026 first round pick, DaShaun's 2026 first round pick, and a 2027 fourth round pick. So we'll start here with Tyler, trading away another one of your boys, Zay Flowers. What'd you think about the return that got it done?
I mean, I'll gladly collect draft capital like Infinity Stones. They are looking quite nice at the bottom of my sleeper team page for me. My thing with Zay Flowers is I just, and like you said, we'll get into it. I just don't know how much more he is than what he's already been. And I think there's a real possibility that this is, what his value is, and it's not going to ever get much higher. Not saying it's going to decline this year or next or whatever, but I just think this is what he is. And, if he were to sustain a big injury or the Ravens, spread out his targets a bit more to whoever, I don't know. I won't predict the future here. I just, he doesn't seem like much more than, an 1,000-yard receiver year in, year out. And to get a first rounder next year, I'm willing to take that gamble. I
Very
feel like,
fair.
yeah, I was just, I also feel like I have the wide receiver depth to cover it up. So,
Hmm. Okay. All very fair there. DaShaun, very briefly. Actually, you know what? We're gonna stop. Don't talk about Zay Flowers yet. Just I guess talk about what motivated you to make this trade, because we'll talk about Zay Flowers in a little bit.
Um, so pretty much all it was is I was just looking around the league. At first, in my personal opinion, I had a very iffy wide receiver room, especially for depth. Um, a lot of young talent that could maybe get me some points, but nothing, no solid. I'm gonna get points this week if someone gets injured. Um, I don't know if how much I trust Chris Olave right now. With the quarterback situation. Um, there's just a lot of ifs on my team, and I just wanted one more piece, so just to solidify it. And I think that now I'm a big contender for the end of the year. When when playoff time comes around. So
Very fair. And like I said, we'll get into your Zay Flowers thoughts here shortly. Savan, your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, I echo what both of these guys say. Tyler has so much draft capital, three first next year, two first the year following. And he still has a solid team. So at any point, Tyler could decide to go all in, or he could keep collecting and go all in at a future time. So I like this for him. And then for DaShaun, pretty much exactly what he said about his receiver depth. So adding somebody you can confidently throw into the lineup and they're going to get you points, especially a type like Zay, who's kind of boomer bust. He's a perfect flex option for what I think Deshaun's team needed. So
Awesome. Savan, if Tyler offered you all three first round picks next year for Malik
no,
Neighbors, would you accept it?
yeah, I knew that's where you're going. No,
What if it
no
was for
way.
Jahmyr Gibbs?
No.
What if it was for Drake
Wow.
May, the milkman?
Now that would yeah, I would do that. Yeah.
Wow. I thought for sure you'd
wow.
turn that down out of pride.
No, next year's quarterback class is so juicy.
Okay.
So
There you go. Tyler, your quarterback problem fixed. The
Three
quarterback problem you
first
don't have.
three first round picks for a guy who's never scored above
yeah,
23
it's
fantasy
a
points in a game.
hypothetical.
Okay, that was a fun hypothetical. I don't have any unique thoughts. I'll get into my Zay Flowers thoughts later. I like Tyler getting a first round pick. I think Christian Kirk could have flex value if things bounce right this year, and then a fourth rounder. So I like it for both sides. Not a big Zay Flowers fan, but we'll talk about that. Okay, trades are in the past. Let's get into this here. DaShaun team breakdown, Swirly 15, JeantyConnoisseurs. So start off here. Uh, Cevan, Tyler, and I all have him in the contender category. And just a reminder again, the categories from top to bottom are favorites, contenders, playoff aspirations, and then maybe next year. And then, unsurprisingly, DaShaun has himself as a favorite, which is perfectly fine. All of us were higher on our own team than the rest of you. You should be higher on your own team. Clearly, you can see from the Keep Trade Cut a very strong roster overall. Top five at quarterback, the number one running back room, number three wide receiver room, the number six tight end room. But obviously, as we talked about, dead last in the league in terms of draft capital, coming off a year in which he finished eighth with that notorious tie, 6-7-1, and he was finished ninth in points for. So we'll start with you, DaShaun. Tell us why, in broad terms, why you're a favorite and why you're better than we think you are.
I just feel like at this point I don't really have any holes on my team. I have a lot of, I would say, potential. I have a lot that could turn into maybe assets to trade away, maybe even help. So I have draft capital in the future. So I'm not really worried about that right now. Um, I just think I really trust in Bo and Caleb. That has a lot to do with it. I think that they're going to be solid for a while. And then I have Gino, which him going to Las Vegas this offseason is really big. Um, it's a way better situation than Seattle, and I think that it's going to benefit my team a lot. And on top of it, my wide receiver room got a lot better, in my opinion. I still have Sutton. I don't know how I feel about him, just because he's getting a little old, and I don't really know how that Broncos offense is going to run next year. But especially with Pat Bryant, I really do think he's a good prospect. So I'm pretty
Thank
sure,
you.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you have him, Savon. But yeah, that's really it. And then my running back room is just that's undeniable. with Genty and then Saquon, that potentially could be 30 points a week. I mean, like every other week, like between the two of them or one of them. So I just think there's a lot of firepower there.
Definitely. Cevan, tell him why he's wrong.
Not that you're wrong. Uh, Tight end, obviously the biggest question in your starting lineup. Um,
I will
you're
say about that, Pitts has been in trade talks, I guess.
he's not gonna get traded.
If
But
Kyle Pitts is just cheeks, it doesn't matter where he's playing. He's going to be cheeks wherever
Yeah.
he is.
just let
So
me believe one more year, guys, at
so yeah,
least.
along from tight end, which I don't think is it's not a problem you need to have because you have Colston, but starting lineup is very strong. And then adding Zay Flowers really does help. Um, having three quarterbacks is great. Having a lot of receivers that have a path, not named Jalen Polk. Um, it's a really top heavy team. Um, I don't, yeah. So I mean, being a contender is great after missing the playoffs last year. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, definitely good work from coming from ninth in points scored and eighth in the standings last year to being towards the top of the league for all of us in our power rankings. Before we go to Tyler, I have pretty similar thoughts. The top heavy nature of the team, the top of his starting lineup is as good as anybody in the league. But as we all know, injuries happen, down years happen, situations change. So I think that could end up causing issues, which is why I have him just a tiny notch below the favorites. I did have a number three in my power rankings, um, but I only had the top two as favorites. So very close to that favorite tier for me, but just below it. Just a little bit of a lack of depth compared to the favorites. So Tyler, do you have any more thoughts?
Yes. I had DaShaun at number two for me. I only felt confident putting one team as a favorite, honestly. I think the there's a few teams that I could maybe be convinced as a favorite. For me here, it's the same thing as I said for your team breakdown, Reed. It's more so about the superstar power on another team that kind of sets it apart for me. But I'll, happily be proved wrong if, DaShaun comes out and is by far the best team by mid-season. It's just right now, yeah, I have him at the number two spot. So I only have one favorite in my power rankings, and so all these teams in contender. It's no disrespect to them.
It feels disrespectful to glaze one team like this and tell
Uh,
everybody else they're not worthy,
sorry,
but
I'm
it's
loyal.
okay. You're
Let
loyal
me
to
comment
not
real
your team. That's impressive. Savan.
yeah, let me comment real quick. Deshaun, I'm not ducking this. I'm not gonna lie. I floated all week back and forth between playoff aspirations and contender, and you
Wow.
went you
That's
went
crazy.
in my power rankings, you went between you floated between 4 and 6 all week, but the Zay Flowers, I think, got you back to 5 for me. So comfortably at the end of my contender tier, but we'll get into more of that in a little bit.
I'm not gonna lie, having yourself above
Of course,
Deshaun
you
is
have
some
yourself
wild
above
shit.
me. Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
wild.
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll jump into the team accolades here. We're gonna have Deshaun kick off each of the categories, has his own slide. MVP, Saquon Barkley. Deshaun, give us the rundown on Saquon this year, coming off a 2,000 yard season.
Um, Not much else to say, but one of the greatest seasons ever by a running back recently. Just points like crazy. I mean, I remember he just had, I wasn't scoring a lot last year. I was ninth in scoring, as you can see, but the weeks where I was getting any points, it was all Saquon. Um, it was just unbelievable. It was 20 points, 30 points, 200 yards a game. It was insane. So he's obviously the MVP. I'm hoping he can return to the same. Obviously, I mean, it's probably not going to be repeated like last year, but hopefully we can still see some great productive football out of him next year.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to fight the Saquon Barkley pick, even if we don't have him ourselves. I don't think anybody's going to call that controversial. So, two people here have Sedarian Lamb. Savon, we'll start with you. Why do you have CD over the other stars he has on his team?
He just demands targets. He's an alpha. Uh He's on a good offense with a good quarterback. He's paid like a top receiver. He performs like a top receiver. So uh, he has the path to be the wide receiver one each and every year. And this year should shape up to be a solid year as long as Dak stays healthy. So
I hope Dak stays healthy as well. Tyler, any other thoughts on Lamb here?
No, not really. Someone's got it covered. I mean, we all know who CeeDee Lamb is, and I think this is probably the safest superstar on DaShaun's team, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
I agree with that as well.
I agree with that, and that's exactly why I didn't choose him because I didn't want to be boring. So I chose Bo Nix here. I was very skeptical of Bo Nix last year. I had Javonte Williams on one of my other teams, so I watched a lot of the Broncos early in the year, and the dude didn't know he was very much a transition time for him. And then I ended up getting rid of Javonte Williams, stopped watching the Broncos, and suddenly this dude's throwing up numbers like I wouldn't believe. And I go back and I watch him when he plays the Chiefs in at Arrowhead, and like this dude is just dicing the Chiefs, and they have a good defense. So I was really impressed the way he was able to develop throughout the year because that first week against the Seahawks was ugly. Yeah, again, like you said, a young quarterback who was top 10 last year as a rookie in scoring. That's a huge advantage to have. The quarterback in a super flex position is super important. So, yeah, I don't think it's not necessarily controversial, but I think Bo's really good, and I would definitely personally assume he is your quarterback one, even if other people don't think that. I think he's a really good staple to have on the team this year. So looking past MVP to most improved, unsurprisingly, DaShaun has Caleb Williams. DaShaun, let's hear it. Tell us why Caleb Williams is going to bounce back and try not to say Ben Johnson too many times.
Yeah, we got the new coaching staff. We got Ben and he got some more offensive help. We got Colston and Luther Burden, and I just believe in the offense the way everything's going. Caleb shined a little bit in moments last year. He wasn't terrible. We all know the situation. The Bears can't hire good coaching staff to save their lives, but yeah, I think he's going to take a big step this forward. I personally, one of my takes is that I think he's going to be a top 15, top 10 quarterback this year in fantasy. I really do believe that. But yeah, I think he's gonna take leaps this year.
Well, he was quarterback 16 last year, so if he takes a leap to quarterback 15, I don't think he's probably going to make your most improved section.
think he was
But
quarterback 17.
I'm
It's
looking at his
16.
profile right now.
Okay, my bad.
But
Well,
either way,
sorry,
17 or
sorry.
16 to
I
15.
know our scoring is a little bit different, so I think he probably finished the year in our scoring as quarterback 17.
Yeah,
Correct. But like
that's
on his
yes.
profile, it just uses the normal scoring, and he's quarterback 16. It's probably because we charge more for sacks. Shout out Shams because he got sacked a bunch. So yeah, 16, 17. But yes, agreed on that part. Oh boy, okay, a couple of Caleb Williams stands here. Let's talk about that some more, I guess. Cevan, same prompt to you. Without saying Ben Johnson more than once, why is Caleb Williams going to be better?
Uh, yeah, Ben Johnson,
Oh, just get it
obviously
right off the bat.
the three new offensive linemen, two skill positions, year two of Rome. Uh, DJ on a $27.5 million a year contract. Defense is going to be good. Uh, Also, it's somewhat easy to get to be a quarterback one in fantasy. You pretty much just have to play all your games and you're there. So going from QB 16 or 17 into the top 12 uh to get another quarterback one, assuming Bo is good, continues to be good. Um yeah, it's just probably it's pretty chalk at this point to just put Caleb there. So
Tyler, what do you have on Mr. Williams?
That'd be I think I'd just be, I guess, beating the same drum, if you will. I mean, we got two Bears fans on the pod right now. What else? I guess I'm a third, kind of.
I have it
Here,
in writing.
you do have it in writing. I signed the contract, Sam, and I'm a Bears fan. But these guys know the squad better, and so I don't have too much to add here. I mean, he's maybe the most obvious, most improved player that we're gonna state here. I know you're kind of a hater, Reed, but I think a lot of people would probably say Caleb Williams is in a situation to improve, unlike m most other players this year.
No, I don't disagree. I'll talk about Caleb Williams later in another section, but I don't disagree. I just didn't have him in this section because
Sure.
I actually am a Tajay Spears fan. Last year they spent the whole offseason after they signed Tony Pollard talking about how it was going to be an even split, and then it just wasn't. It wasn't even close when they were both healthy. And then Spears got hurt two different times, I believe, with a knee and a concussion last year. After the way Tony Pollard kind of wear down at the end of the year, you assume the Titans will be a little bit better this year with better quarterback play, better offensive line play. I actually really like Spears as like an RB3. If he's available, I'd be interested in trading for him. I know we've talked about him before,
Yeah, it's
but
been a while. You liked him. You
yeah.
asked him a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see Spears being a guy who obviously if Pollard got hurt, the value spikes. But even without a injury to Pollard, like I could see him getting half the work this year, and I think that's a huge improvement, especially for a team like his where we'll see on his position groups he has his three big dogs and then Spears. So if he has either underperformance or injury at the top, Spears could end up playing a big role in his season, and I am a Spears fan this year. So
Before we get off this slide, does anybody feel like Tajay in this picture just looks like a little kid?
Yeah, he looks really small. I was noticed that right away.
It's because of the Guardian cap.
mega
He,
mind out there on the field.
yeah.
Okay, most improved. Everyone loves Caleb Williams. We get it. Onto the sleeper, Theo Johnson, second year tight end out of Penn State on the New York Football Giants. DaShaun, give us your Theo Johnson rundown quickly.
I'm actually a really big Theo Johnson fan. I liked him ever since I drafted him last year in the draft. I think he's a good prospect. I don't know how I feel about the situation, but I think that they don't have many pass catchers beyond Neighbors. Um, and I just believe in his talent. Um, I don't think he's going to be super productive, but I think last year he was not productive like at all. So, um, for fantasy wise, and so I think that this year he becomes a better pass catcher and he just takes a little bit of a leap, and then maybe it's something I don't know what.
Yeah, very fair. And believe it or not, I also have Theo Johnson as my sleeper. So I'm going to go start here. I also like Theo Johnson, athletic freak, high draft capital from Penn State last year, suffered an injury that ended his season. But like you mentioned, there's a lot of names behind Malik Neighbors, but none of them are particularly interesting. And I think that Theo has albeit small, a realistic chance of potentially becoming their second option after Neighbors in the pass game this year. Again, athletic profile is really important for tight ends, and he is very athletic. I like the safety net that he provides for either Dart if he ends up starting sooner rather than later, or to Russell Wilson. So I'm also a fan. I don't necessarily agree, or I agree. I don't necessarily think he'll be a smash pick right out the gate, but I think again, the more he gets comfortable, the more the coaching staff is able to utilize him. I am also a Theo Johnson fan. So, Tyler, we'll start with you here. Shamir Dyke. I don't even know the name.
It's
It's Chimere
It's
DK.
it's
Sorry.
Shimmer.
Yes,
Okay.
DK. Yeah,
Sorry.
me and Cevan had this talk the other day.
That
I
sounds
look.
like something
I
I'd
had
want to talk
no
about with
idea
him.
who he was when I put him on my taxi, actually.
Well, Tyler's a
So
fan. So, Tyler, give us the rundown on this fella.
Yeah, I am a fan. You know, I think I'm a fan of him for similar reasons to why I was a fan of Io Manor on my team. Uh, Chimray, he never eclipsed 1,000 yards in college. He played 5 years. He didn't even eclipse 800, honestly. But he tested very well at the combine. I believe his athleticism score was seventh best among wide receivers. And the Tennessee Titans, they drafted him with pick in the fourth round, so they were very keen on him as well. And so, I think I talk quite a bit about opportunities and there maybe being a way for a player to be relevant. I think that's so key in a receiver's rookie year. And so with new quarterback, in a pretty unproven wide receiver room, I don't see how, DK doesn't have a chance here. I guess I don't know how he's been doing in OTAs or anything like that, rookie camp. So we'll see, I guess. But I like him as a name to keep an eye on, even if he didn't produce a whole lot at the college level.
I will say if you go and watch his tape, he is pretty good on tape. His tape is very good in my opinion.
Nice.
He,
I
he's
believe,
fast.
yeah, I believe it. I haven't seen it myself, so you're more apt than me to speak on that, but I believe it.
Okay, got that rundown out of the way for the fourth taxi squad guy on his team.
Let's
Cevan,
go.
Trey Harris, popular guy. We'll talk about him more later. Why is he a sleeper?
Yeah, sorry if I ramble on this for a bit, but when Trey Harris got drafted in the second round to the Chargers, I think me and Reed were,
Immediately.
yeah, we were like that couldn't be a better landing spot, and honestly, it couldn't be. So Trey Harris, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's built like a true X. Uh, he's probably going to be what they wanted Quentin Johnson to be, but I don't think you could have a better type of receiver to pair with Lad McConkey than Trey Harris. And it may not be a big deal that they re-signed Mike Williams, but I think the Chargers re-signing Mike Williams is absolutely perfect for Trey Harris because I feel like when Mike Williams was good, that's what they're going to want Trey Harris to be. So as washed as Mike Williams might be, he can still show Trey Harris the ropes. Um, I know on his reception perception, he ran a lot of nines and stops in college, which he did. That's one thing he needs to work on is his route tree. But if he ever puts it together and he's able to run an NFL route tree, combination of him and McConkey genuinely could be one of those, like they could get on a graphic where you see top two receiver duos because you have Lad who can play on the inside, but he's actually a better receiver on the outside. So if Trey Harris puts it together and he is a true X and he can just stay on the outside, they can move Lad wherever, then Justin Herbert is going to be able to pick defenses apart. But yeah, Trey Harris, somebody I really like. Um, definitely does add a ceiling of depth to DaShaun's receiver core. So
Um,
definite sleeper for the year.
my biggest question is anybody actually sleeping on Trey Harris? I don't think anybody, I feel like everybody's excited
Well,
for him. How is he in the sleeper
he's
category?
I would say the same.
it's just because he's a rookie. He's never played an NFL snap, so you don't know what anybody's going to do until they actually do it.
That's very fair. I
Because
can't fault the
Quentin
logic
Johnson
there.
also was a first round pick who you get where I'm going.
He had a big year last year.
Oh, huge year, all 500 yards of it.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
What's up?
DaShaun, if you had to explain in like 3 sentences or less, what does the little crystal ball emoji next to Theo Johnson's name mean to you?
So when I was doing my like naming my players, I was gonna put all of those for like future, like I think they're gonna break out in the future. That it's
Sure.
supposed to be like one of those fortune teller balls or something.
Okay, okay. So you're predicting the future for Theo here.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
actually fits perfectly into. I think he will be a sleeper. So
Oh, real quick. Also, all you non-ball knowers that are listening, a nine is a go route.
Very helpful. Thank you for the
Yeah,
yeah.
clarification.
sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, we went past the sleeper category here. On to best value. DaShaun, shockingly, Ashton Genty. Tell us why he's the best value of any player you acquired on your team.
Um, I would think between him and CD, I think they're probably my best chance at like secure. I think they're both for sure secure superstars for the next upcoming year. He's young. I think he's gonna be explosive. I like the landing spot. Obviously there's not too much to say. The Genty hype is it's high. So um I just believe in this year he could do great things, especially as a rookie. I like all of it.
Okay, very fair. I would argue he's the worst value on your team when you turn down 3 first round picks for him, but that's okay. Best value, Tyler. Why is Saquon his best value?
Yeah, I think when we think of value, think of guys that, are really performing well relative to where how they were acquired. I guess it's obvious, like no shit.
Correct.
But Saquon was drafted at the 308 position in the inaugural draft. And I think that's an absolute steal considering where he ranked in the running backs. I mean, I think if we were to redo the inaugural draft, he'd be quite higher. I'll bring up two running backs and compare them. Christian McCaffrey, similar age, and who has also had really great production in the past, obviously, went at the 2-2 spot. So for DaShaun to get someone like Barkley, a round and a half later and put up great stats last year and be a bona fide superstar in his lineup this year, I think there's huge value. 2 picks later, Travis Etienne goes at 310, and Etienne obviously really struggled last year. And so I just think, to get such an elite running back at this late in the draft, where it kind of looks like there appeared to be a dead zone of running backs, not a lot of running backs going in rounds 3 to 5, looking at it now. I think getting Barkley there was such a steal. And, you know, obviously we knew last year he was a superstar, but just I think 3-8 is just so late looking back at it now. And he easily could have gone at, if we knew what we know now, he could have gone at that 2-2, or honestly maybe even slipped into the first round. Who knows? Not slipped into, but
Hmm.
jumped into the first round there. So I think this is a huge value for someone who is going to score elite points for you.
Cevan, I think you just caught a Travis Etienne stray there, but big fan.
So
Cevan, Cortland Sutton's kind of obvious. Really odd trade from Trent. Why is Cortland Sutton his best value?
yeah, when I think of best value, I'm thinking of how they were acquired. And at the time of the trade, I don't think Cortland was because Bo has wasn't caught up to speed yet. So I don't think Cortland was taking off. But uh, when the trade got executed from there on, Cortland performed like a wide receiver one. And so when you think that you got him for a fourth round pick and John Mechie, who never should have been on anybody's roster to begin with, um, it's a great return on. I would call it an investment, but there was nothing given up. So basically got Cortland Sutton off waivers, the way I look at it. So it's great value.
I don't disagree with the assessment there. I had Colston Loveland. Took him just at 202 in the recent rookie draft. Uh, Again, at this moment, things change, but a top five dynasty tight end in a tight end premium league at the 202, that's just great drafting, like taking the value where it falls. Obviously, he's a big Kyle Pitts believer, so didn't necessarily need a tight end, but scooping one up to stack with Caleb Williams is great. I was sitting at 203, hoping he continued to fall, and he didn't. So I think, again, hopefully shoring up a tight end in a tight end premium league, great value. So big fan of that one. Off of best value, we have overrated. DaShaun has Kyle Pitts, the GOAT. So maybe not a fan. DaShaun, why is Kyle
Um,
Pitts overrated?
yeah, this one I don't know if it necessarily overrated. It's just every year, um, we I know I do. I think every year since his rookie year, I've at least had one share of Kyle Pitts in some league, and I regret it every year. Um, I think everyone obviously is clinging. I'm still clinging on to that rookie season of what he could be. I don't think he's done. I do think there's a lot of if he got traded, I think that's something that maybe could open up his game, or maybe Penix changes things. I don't know, but I think there's room for growth, but I just don't. I really don't see it. That's a lot of the reason why I do have. I'm glad I have Colston and Theo on my bench because I don't trust Kyle Pitts that much.
I think Kyle Pitts is the meme of the guy who stopped mining right before he hits the diamonds. And then the
Yes.
guy on the bottom
Yeah.
is still mining. Giving up now is giving up right before he pays off. Half joking, half serious. I could see an Eric Ebron career arc where he goes through like a perfect situation and they use his skills perfectly. He stays healthy, and then he just has like one or two, solid years. But yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's going to happen with the Falcons. So if I were you, I'd be hoping for a trade. Overrated for the group here. Savan, any follow-ups here on Kyle Pitts?
Yeah. I just think he's overrated because based off what he did his rookie year, he still just has so much name value alone. And like DaShaun was saying, people cling on to his rookie year when in reality, he should be pretty easy to acquire if someone was to trade for him because of what he has slash hasn't done. But I don't know, people are just holding on because he did show as a rookie, which tight end is notably maybe the hardest non-quarterback position to come into the league with or and learn. And so just based on the fact that he showed it, that he can do it and hasn't done it. I mean, he's still only 24, but I think he should be a lot easier to be acquired than what he probably is. So
Are you looking to stack him with Michael Penix?
no,
Live trade on
I
the pod, maybe?
I do not want Kyle Pitts.
He hates Kyle Pitts.
I don't
Savon's
hate
always
Kyle
hated Kyle
Pitts.
Pitts.
I don't hate Kyle Pitts. I think he's a fine NFL tight end, but he is he I wouldn't want him to be my tight end one in a dynasty league, pretty much.
It feels like
What,
there could be an Anthony Richardson parallel drawn
yeah,
here somewhere, but I don't know.
who was it, Cevan, that I compared Kyle Pitts to the other day? And you said you would take Kyle Pitts' stats, though.
You were talking about who was it? It
It was
was
another tight end, and you took Kyle Pitts when I just gave you stats.
I don't remember. I'll try and think about it.
Okay,
Probably Jack Doyle.
come back to that.
Oh, it was Kincaid,
Yeah, it was Kincaid. It was Kincaid.
but you compared two different years and you told me that afterwards, which made no sense.
I don't
Okay.
think I, but
Kyle Pitts, certified cheeks for two of the people on the podcast here. I don't think Kyle Pitts' career is over.
I
I
don't
think
either.
he's a perfectly good tight end too. So I think Loveland was a huge pickup. I would love to have Kyle Pitts on my bench, but
I
I
I
also
think
have Drake London.
I think Kyle Pitts outscores Loveland this year.
I don't think that's
Yeah,
crazy at all.
I agree.
that's not crazy at all in my opinion.
Okay, then you said he's a perfect tight end two behind Loveland?
I mean, I think that Loveland's gonna put up points, but I don't. My position for tight end, I'm probably gonna be moving around week to week. I don't even know who's gonna be starting week one for my tight end position. If it could be Colston, it could be Pitts. It's probably not Theo. I'll say that.
I think Pitts is a perfect tight end too behind Loveland because at the very least you have somebody that if Loveland, Loveland still is not practicing with his shoulder injury. If something happens where you don't feel comfortable starting, like I would put money on Pitts being his week one starter at tight end because you
Yeah.
just don't know what you're going to get. So that's why I'm saying he's a perfect tight end too, where he's still young enough that there could be, tight ends are notorious for having, like a second career arc of whether they change teams, they get utilized differently, whatever it is. Not everybody has like Laporta and Bowers kind of changed how people view the tight end position because people used to shy away from rookie tight ends because it was so hard to produce right away. So I don't think his career is over. He's still only 24 in the right situation. Like I think he's a perfect tight end too to have behind somebody who you feel very confident will produce even if it's not week one, like down the line, whether that be a couple weeks in or in year two or whatever that is for Loveland. That's why I said that.
I agree with everything you just said. And then when we finally added maybe year two, that's where it is for me. I don't personally, I don't think there's a world this year where Loveland finishes higher than Kyle Pitts.
There's
This year,
any world.
Hey, wait, yeah, that's crazy. What if
Ben
Colston
Johnson,
ends
yeah,
up catching all the red zone targets?
Laporta just had a tight end one season with Ben Johnson 2 years ago.
yes, with Amon-Ra St. Brown as the only target earner ahead of him. And I think there's a world where Colson Loveland is the fifth target earner in this offense. And if you
Behind Cole
compare
Kmet.
a, a 5-year vet that's paid like one and has the highest catch rate in football and is
Okay.
a great red zone threat who has the most red zone touchdowns over the last 3 years, yes, I do from the tight end spot. I do see where there's a world where
But you don't see, so you see a world where he's number five, but you don't see a world where he's a starting caliber tight end in fantasy.
no, I did not say that. I said
Sorry, that scores more pits than scores more points than Kyle Pitts.
Does anybody want to bet on this?
No, but you said that you don't see a world where that happens, meaning it's not
Not
going to happen.
in year one, this year, 2025.
Yeah.
No, I don't. because I
There's
think Kyle
zero
Pitts
chance
is
that Kyle Pitts is outscored by Colson
there's
Loveland this year.
there's 5%
Okay,
chance.
so there is a world.
Okay,
Okay, yeah,
5%.
we're gonna move on. Tyler, Ashton Genty, Deshaun
Yeah.
loves glazing him. Why is he overrated?
We'll start with some trivia real quick. Do you guys, and if you don't know, it's fine. Do you guys know the last time a 5'9" running back was drafted within the top six?
Trent
Yeah.
Richardson.
Yep. Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson,
Oh my,
notably.
are you gonna spend your time comparing him to Trent Richardson? Because if so,
Don't
we
mind.
should just
No,
skip past it.
I
no,
don't hate this take. I like
no,
it.
I'm
Keep going.
not. I
No,
am
Okay,
not
that's fine.
comparing him to Trent Richardson. I was, yeah, I was going to preface with that. I'm not comparing him to Trent Richardson. However, the way Genty's being valued right now as an running back one, I just I'd hold my horses at that a little bit. I mean, and the reason I bring up Trent Richardson is because we have seen a smaller running back with extremely high draft capital kind of falter. Trent Richardson never had 1,000 yard season. He fizzled out after 3, 4 years in the NFL. And so for Genty to have this value so astronomically high, I just I I struggle to call him properly rated right now when there are guys behind him that have, proven NFL worth. And so I think I need to see something here for Genty before, calling him this clear-cut RB1 with Vegas here. So I mean, totally the right pick in the rookie draft at the 1-1. Not slamming that whatsoever. I just relative to the other running backs and the other players around um, his value, I would probably call him a little bit overrated just because there is some unknown with him. I mean, his athleticism score was fourth amongst running backs. Boise State, obviously not the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, whatever it is. That's a smaller conference, and so we'll see how he does with NFL competition. I am really curious in this, but I'm not ready to say his value is justified quite yet.
I wholeheartedly agree with your take here. I was going to put him, but I did wanted to diversify a little bit. So I wholeheartedly agree with your take. Again, as I mentioned, I would argue trading down the 3 first-round picks for him would argue makes him the worst value on the team because, like you said, could he be a superstar? Absolutely. Running backs drafted that high in the recent memory have had great track records of being superstars, but there's just so much unknown with a rookie. You just don't know what you're going to get. Chip Kelly runs the ball a lot. Uh, you know, I'm a fan. I'm just saying I agree that I think his value in
Yeah,
Dynasty is overrated right now.
yeah. And I do think he's more likely to be a superstar than not, also. It's just that I don't think that not chance is zero. I don't know if I worded that correctly, but hopefully I think there is a non-zero chance that things could go awry for him.
There's a non-zero chance things can go awry for anybody. So I agree
Well,
with that
yeah.
take as well. Anybody have any Ashton Genty pushback, Deshaun?
I guess the only thing I could agree, I don't, I feel like it's the same comparisons. I've already heard the Trent Richardson, um, and all everything from not playing competition in college. And but I don't know if you guys remember, he did play really well against Oregon, and Oregon was not a bad team last year. Um,
Sure.
it's just I just think that it's just prospect fatigue. I think he's going to be just fine. Um, that's really it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point. And to be clear, right now in Keep Trade Cut, Genty is ranked third amongst running backs behind Bijan and Jameer. But I think honestly, looking at your team, DaShaun, I personally value Barkley and probably Achan higher than Genty. It's close, but
You really came around in the last year to get A-Chain over Genty.
me,
Yeah,
I mean, opinions change.
It's
so
always
I love to
important
see
to
it.
update your opinions with new information.
Yep, I've been doing that all week.
How
And
about
on
Jalen
AD
Red?
Mitchell last week.
Yes,
Big time.
live.
Okay, I have Caleb Williams. I think this is going to be unpopular with 2.5 Bears fans on the pod. but I'm saying that the only reason people are saying he's going to get better is because of Ben Johnson. And I think that there were a lot of negatives in his rookie year from a fantasy perspective that people are just kind of throwing away because they want to believe it's going to be a clean slate. But rookie years are really important and predictive of future success. And again, I'm not saying he's not going to get better because he will get better. It's another year in the NFL. But I'm saying I feel like people are acting as if now he's destined for pure stardom. And I think he probably, if I'd say his most likely outcome is like a back end QB1. And I think people are expecting him to become a superstar now. And I don't see that, especially with where I don't have his KTC up right now with where he's rated, but I would guess he's well inside the top 10 quarterbacks. So I just think he's a little overrated. His potential to be a superstar is still very much there. His potential to be I still would feel comfortable relying on him as one of my two starting quarterbacks. I just don't think that people are putting enough weight into his rookie year and just assuming that we can just toss that out because everything was bad with the coaching staff and the personnel. So that's all.
Can I ask you a question, Reed?
Hit me.
Do you think if when the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, if their head coach was Matt Eberflus, that
hmm
Patrick Mahomes would be himself today?
No, I agree that the coaching staff matters a lot. And if Mahomes, like if you did the NFL redraft and he went where Trubisky went at number two, he would not be who he is today. I'm not saying the coaching staff doesn't matter. It does. It matters a ton. But I'm saying people are using that as a reason to just throw out everything in his rookie year that was poor. Well, Ed, that wasn't his fault. It was everybody else's fault except for his. Rather than saying there are actual flaws in his game that may not be as easy to cover up just because Ben Johnson is there.
That's fair. I
That
guess
is fair. I will say the sacks last year, a lot of those are Caleb's fault. A lot of them are. It's just, I mean,
hmm
yeah, he was fighting for his life. The line wasn't good, but a
Yep.
lot of them are his fault.
Yeah. No, of course. The line upgrades and the coaching staff upgrades are huge. But yeah, I just think his chance to be a superstar is lower than people think, than the consensus is on him. Um, and that's all. I just think he's a little overrated at how people value him right now. That's all. Still a fan of the player and the talent.
would you rather have let's just say we did a dynasty startup right now. Would you
hmm
rather have I don't know Caleb's ADP.
Would you
What
rather have
do
Caleb or
do you know
CJ
what
Stroud?
That's a good question. That's a tough one. Like if I was making my rankings, which I don't have on hand, which we will be doing very towards the end of the offseason, if everyone's interested, we'll be doing our top dynasty ranks. That's a tough one. I'd probably take Stroud by just a hair because we've seen him do it. New offensive coordinator, Nico Collins is badass. They just drafted two new receivers. The O line will have to get better this year. So again, we've already seen him be an elite fantasy quarterback. So I'd probably take Stroud by just a hair, but that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, I was just, they both had, I mean, I wouldn't call last year a good year for Caleb, and I would almost say the same thing for CJ.
hmm
So,
Him and like, would you guys rather have him or Bo Nix as a dynasty asset?
Caleb or Bo Nix?
Yep.
Caleb.
yeah,
yeah, I think Caleb. Um, I just think, well, it just depends. I don't know. I think
for
that's
me
hard.
for me, I think last year's I know it's just the rookie year, but I think last year is closer to Bo's ceiling
hmm
than Caleb's last year being closer to his ceiling. Does that make sense?
Yes, I know what you're trying to say. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't. So who would you take as you take Caleb then, Cevan?
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably give the edge to Bo Nix. I think him, Stroud, and Bo Nix is like a perfect tier of guys where you could make an argument for any of the three as the best one. I just think I'd put Caleb third in that tier. That's all. Okay, off of overrated, droppable. Jalen Polk, the GOAT. Deuces. DaShaun, do you have anything to add here?
Speaking of droppable, guy can't catch a pass. But I had a lot of hopes for Jalen Polk last year. It's pretty obvious, literally the worst graded receiver last year. he just didn't have a good season. The coaching staff, I don't think they really liked him. They were moving him around a lot. He played X freaking Z. He played a bunch of different positions. They had him everywhere. And I think that didn't help him, but I also just think he's not that good. So um, they have so many receivers. It's still open. We like Kyle Williams, but I still think that there is a chance maybe in a not very big one that he maybe gets on the field and gets some snaps. I don't think he'll ever be productive, so I just think he's droppable.
Very fair. I believe we have two agreements here on Jalen Polk. Do you guys have anything else fun to add on him?
Yeah. He got phased out last year. After week 12, he didn't score a single fantasy point, whereas in, week 4 and 5, he saw an 83 snap percentage, and week 5, 100% snap percentage. So he went from, being given a shot to not even being on the field. So
Cevan?
For me, not be able to carve out any type of role on what was probably the worst wide receiver core in the league last year tells you a lot about Michael Penix, because Michael Penix got this man drafted
Yes.
37th overall. But to think about that, he was the fifth pick in the second round. He had let me real quick, how many receptions did he have? He had 12 receptions for 87 yards in a season after being a top 40 selection with absolutely no competition there is, yeah, I mean,
wild.
I would like to see a live drop if we could, because he fits the category that, the category.
Yes. We all know the category for those loyal pod listeners. Top
Yes.
100 picks with less than 20 receptions in their rookie year. I didn't put Jalen Polk for two reasons. Number one, as we talked about, the draft capital, fifth pick in the second round. And second, it's a new coaching staff. So while he was very clearly phased out last year to the point of not even just be seeing the field, it's a new coaching staff forming their new opinions, new evaluations, fresh start for him. So purely out of the hope that a second round pick with a new regime gives him another chance, I didn't put him there. Honestly, I don't think he really has anybody that's droppable on his bench. Like I think his everybody on his bench is like a perfectly rosterable player. So there is depth in that way. I just put Troy Franklin. He fell in the draft last year because he's so damn skinny. Uh, Broncos added Evan Ingram. They added RJ Harvey. I just don't know what kind of role he's able to carve out. He came on a little more towards the end of the year, but yeah, I guess he would. I just didn't want to put Jalen Polk because I wanted to push back just because of those 2 points. But like I said, I don't really think anybody on his team is droppable. I think he has a really solid bench, top to bottom.
I will add, I had Yoshi on here for a while, um, and then I switched it. I was actually having a conversation with Cevan, and I talked myself out of it. Just because if Higgins or
Hmm.
is hurt at all, that's a great asset to have on your bench. So,
That was why I didn't put him as well.
but
Yeah, it's a good switch.
I do not believe in his game. I don't think he's a very good receiver, just very good position he's in. So,
We
All
talking
fair.
about Yoshi still?
huh?
Were you still talking about Yoshi right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very fair. Okay, past our accolades here, headed right into the quarterback room, which we've already talked about quite a bit, but the only one we haven't really talked about is Geno Smith. DaShaun, what do you think about Geno Smith this year in the new situation?
I actually really loved Gino last year. Pretty sure he was top five in passing yards. Um, I like that he stayed with Pete Carroll. It's just gonna be. He seems like he's gonna fit right in, and be comfortable right away. They got Bowers there. They got Genty. I think Jacoby Myers stays relevant this year. And then I really do like Betch, which is kind of crazy considering um
Yes.
who I but we'll get to that later. But I just really like the offense. I like the way the Raiders are going. I think they're going to be a lot better this year. So I think Geno's going to be a really big part of that as well.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, Geno's like the perfect QB3 for you to have behind two young quarterbacks that performed really well and I would say a little bit below expectation last year. Any sort of injury, underperformance, whatever it is, like I feel that Gino's the perfect veteran to have be able to plug in, get you 15 to, 25 on a good week. Not really going to get you any 30 plus, but he's going to throw the ball. He's going to be good. He's going to be accurate, and he's got good weapons. So I really like Gino's fit in your team, your quarterback room. Tyler, Cevan, any thoughts on the quarterback room or Gino specifically?
Yeah, I like your top two quarterbacks. Both have more upside than they even showed last year. Gino's the perfect QB3. I've been trying to get him for like 9 months. Won't budge.
Yeah, like
Um,
all the time.
I do, I do want you, DaShaun, to touch on Shador because we haven't talked about him,
Um,
and just talk about
Wait,
when
I
you.
have the next slide. We'll talk about Shadur. So don't do
Okay,
that yet.
okay, I won't talk about Shador, but no, this is a this is a perfect quarterback room because your two starters both have they're not high rushers, but they have rushing upside. So that's perfect. And then like what Reed was saying, Gino, if you have an injury or a bye, throw him in the lineup and you're not scrambling. So very solid quarterback room.
Honestly, it's kind of wild that none of us put Bo Nix as his best value. The 11th round, like that's even significantly later than you took Drake May, and
It's
you were
uh
banging his drum last week. So
yeah,
I feel
who
like
he traded for.
that
He
is true.
traded Jameson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in the draft during
yeah,
the draft, so it was
write it down.
technically traded as a pick. So that's why
Yeah.
it says acquired as the inaugural, like in the inaugural draft, but he was technically traded. So that's a good point. I did forget about that.
Yeah. I think he
Tyler,
traded Bryce
Oh,
and some stuff.
uh,
any thoughts on the
no,
quarterback room?
nope, no more notes for me. I agree with you
Okay, no
guys.
notes. Okay, here we go. Shador Sanders, over under, was he the 47th and a half best pick in the rookie draft?
What do
Ooh.
you mean by this?
Was it the
Like if you were
worst?
ranking all the best picks in the draft,
Like
you better
defensively too.
defensive
No,
Oh,
in our draft.
in
oh,
our
so,
draft. In
so you're
our
saying
draft.
there's
Oh,
48 picks in our draft, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're
So was he
saying
the
is
worst pick or was he better than the worst pick?
okay.
It was
I'm
supposed to
I'm
be half of
looking.
a joke. I didn't get as many laughs on it because I realized it wasn't immediately intuitive.
I understood it. I'm looking real quick to see if any other trash
No,
cans.
I like it. It's a good joke or good question.
Okay, no, it's under. I get it was a joke, but there was a worse pick. The next pick.
I was just gonna say, I feel like that pick alone makes it easy to say at least he was the 47th best pick.
Yeah.
Shout out Will Howard.
No
Okay.
offense, but
I mean,
I
some
think
offense.
well, yeah, I think if you listen to our draft breakdown, we all gave you an A, and the only thing that separated it was that pick. Like if you
I
had
will say
taken
though,
Besh there,
what happens when if he comes out and starts? And I don't believe he's gonna be a great quarterback. What if he comes out and he starts and he's a starter for the Browns for a couple years? Then
Then that would be a smash pick for you.
and that's a
yeah,
trade asset. I mean, I just that's how I don't believe Besh will ever be a superstar receiver. So I just think I could have got more value at that time in the draft. I was feeling myself because I had just gotten three really good picks, and I kind of just used it as a just like a free pick, like just something to gamble on, and it was a bad decision. Right afterwards, I tried to send Shadur for Besh right away because I know Cevan needs quarterbacks. Um, but yeah, not I agree with you guys. Not a good decision, but it could end up being a very good one. I just want to put that out there.
It could end up being a good pick. I would agree with that.
I don't think I can even agree with that.
Okay, if he starts a couple years for the Browns, that was a smash
Okay,
pick.
okay, yes, but I don't know. They're they're in a weird spot. I think it's a very good possibility they start four different quarterbacks this year, and no matter what, I think Gabriel has to start before Shadur.
And you don't know the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
Ye-
come on, buddy.
Yeah.
They're trying to get a top pick next year. So that in
So
that way,
then,
Gabriel should start over him.
exactly.
There we go.
So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see.
On to the running backs here. A very short room, but a very elite room. The number one rookie pick, a top five running back, the number one running back, and then my most improved for next year, we've already talked about all of them in depth. Does anybody have any other thoughts here about the running back room?
Um, I guess I'll go. I top three elite. Um, I think each three. Tyler laid out for us a route that Ashton Genty isn't a top three dynasty running back, whatever. A-Chain has his risks. Barkley had 3 straight years of being injured. So while on paper this is the best running back room, uh, I could see a world where it all falls apart quickly. And so with my take now, it's kind of feeding into something I'll get into later, but love the room as long as everybody stays on path to what they're projected to do.
I will say, why don't you like Devon A Chain?
I
You
love
seem
Devon
to.
A-Chain.
Well, you said something about Ollie Gordon too when he was drafted.
No, no, no,
Yes,
no, no.
yes, you
Trust me.
did. You did.
Trust me that.
I have it on text. You
Okay, no,
said
you don't.
yes, I do.
Cevan exposed as an Ollie Gordon supporter.
No, I promise I'm not an Ollie Gordon supporter.
Well,
No,
I feel like I said something about like my running back room being really good, and you just were crapping on Devon A Chain, and then you did mention Ollie Gordon because I was like, what the heck?
there's no world I crapped on Devon A-Chain because Tyler and Reed both know I'm in on A-Chain.
Well,
Cevan, you were probably doing it to try to annoy him because his running back room is so top heavy. You were like, "Oh, Ollie Gordon's going to take snaps from Achan. Will
That's not
Shipley's
that
probably going
does
to lead the
Not
he's
backfield
like,
this year."
yeah, and he's like, A Chain's just so injury risk, such an injury risk. Ollie's
he
gonna get snaps. I'm like, what are you talking about?
that is probably how the conversation went, was I was just trolling. But
not even bringing up your own guy, Jalen Wright.
no, I probably brought him up
Oh
too.
yeah, that's also a part of the conversation always.
Well, hey, we'll get to it. Tyler Reed, you guys, DaShaun?
Oh man, yeah, elite. I only worry about if one injury, you're fine. Two injuries here, even if it's just, small injuries during a week, you might have to pick up a running back pretty quick or find a way to trade for one. That'd be my only worry here is if, there's a bad roll of the injury dice this year for you, Deshaun. It might be get a little hairy with the running back room and having to start two running backs. And if there's multiple injuries there, might need a piece there. But that's not saying you won't be able to get anything or something like that. So I've I still really like the room, and I won't gamble on injuries or anything like that. So
Yeah, I don't have any unique thoughts here. I don't have it on me right now, but Saquon Barkley had like 450 something touches last year. I don't know the track record of players the year after a season with that many touches, but I would guess it probably is a higher injury risk. I'm not one that's just like, oh, he's gonna get hurt, but when you have that many touches, I would guess that the injury risk is probably a little bit higher. So I agree. I like how Tyler put it, like just, little injuries happen. Players get banged up. Players have bye weeks. So you get one guy on a bye week, and Achan twists his knee and misses a week. Suddenly you're starting Spears, and or trying to find something else to do. So this right here is the definition of top heavy. But at the end of the day, the nobody has a higher ceiling at the running back position than this room here. So coming off the running backs as a very top heavy room with only 4 names on it, we have a monstrous wide receiver room. We've
oh gosh.
I know. This is even more names than I had on mine. Obviously, we've talked about Lamb, we've talked about Sutton, Jordan Addison, infamously acquired in a trade with Tyler. We've talked about Yoshivas, we've talked about DK, we've briefly grazed on Olave, talked about Polk, and then Jalen Coker. I know Deshaun's a big Coke head.
Yep.
Jalen McMillan, Jalen Lane, Jimmy Horn, Trey Harris, Troy Franklin, and we talked about Zay Flowers. Actually, no, we really didn't talk about Zay Flowers that much, so we need to make sure we talk about him here. Uh, you know what? Big room, Deshaun, kick us off. Either specific thoughts, broad thoughts. What do you got on your receiver room?
I actually really like it. I think there's a lot of potential, but there's a lot of scary players on here to me. Number one, that being Chris Olave. Um, I'm just if he gets hurt again, we all know it's probably over. Especially for concussion wise. But I'm scared of Shuck. I don't like the quarterback situation at all. I think I said that earlier in the episode. But um, and then same thing with guys like Jalen Coker. I think he's a great receiver. I really do like Jalen Coker. And I do think he has a chance to carve out a role in the Panthers offense, but I just don't think he'll ever be quite enough to maybe start unless someone's injured or just a plug and play player. Um, and then we have Sutton. There's not too much to say. I think he was top 15 last year. He was a really good wide receiver. I mean, I have him stacked with Bo. Um, so I mean, he's getting old, but I think he just signed a 2-year extension. So there's that. Um, and then CD, there's nothing really to talk about. It's CD's top 3 receiver. Unless you want to throw AJ Brown in there, fantasy wise, but dynasty wise, I would say top 3 receiver. Um, I mean, I really like Jordan Addison. I think, I know Cevan hated that I'm using this word for it, but I really think he's going to break out even more this year. Um, I don't think he's been at his full potential with all the quarterback play over the years. It's been a little wonky. I don't think the Vikings have just really gotten it together, and I think that hopefully with McCarthy they get that all together and the offense flows a little bit better. Um,
They just won 14 games.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think I'd push back on that. Quarterback play has
I
been wonky.
Yeah,
I mean
he's had 20 touchdowns the last 2 years.
over the last 5 years or the last couple of years, they've had Cousins, they've had Dobbs starting games for
It's
them.
because Cousins was hurt, not because they needed like
Yeah.
And that's
wanted to
what I'm
start
saying.
someone
Like just
else.
the situation, just like I just don't think that the quarterback. I personally don't like Kirk Cousins, but that's I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I just don't think he was supporting Jordan Addison in the way that I think that I think that just in the future he's just gonna do better. That's just bottom line of it. But
What- Let me ask a question on Jordan Addison. Do you think JJ McCarthy is equal to or better or worse than what Sam Darnold did last year in terms of Jordan Addison's production from last
I
year?
think he'll be better for it. It's the yeah. You don't think so?
I mean, Sam Darnold had an insane year. Like,
Top 10 quarterback, fantasy wise.
like he had 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns.
If JJ McCarthy puts up that, then
Yeah,
that's going to
I
be
mean,
wild.
to me, I think that might be McCarthy's like career ceiling if he can be a 4,300, 35 guy. And I, well, I might just go into, I don't know how much more Jordan Addison can do because he'll never be the first option
Hmm.
ever. And they're starting a first year quarterback. Um, I know the last 2 years he has 20 touchdowns, but uh do any 4 of us think, let's see, I think the touchdown leader last year was Bo Nix with 29 passing touchdowns. I mean, I see a world where McCarthy has 29 touchdowns, but I don't know what I'm asking.
I
I have
also just to, I think I get what you're saying. I also think like in order to be like a truly elite fantasy option as a second option, like you're looking at guys like T. Higgins, Devontae Smith, and I don't think Jordan Addison is that quality of player. And not to mention that, like, even if JJ McCarthy is a good NFL quarterback, the volume is just not going to be as high this year, at least this year in particular, as it
Yeah,
was with Cousins or with Darnold. Because I mean, if you look at his Michigan game, like he was not. They don't air out the ball at Michigan. Like they play an NFL style offense under center, and that's not, going to be someone who's out there slinging it 40 times a game. So I would find it very hard to believe that McCarthy's out there throwing it that many times. So the volume's going to go down, even if the efficiency stays at the level that Darnold had it, which was really high. Like you're still looking at a downturn in production because touchdowns historically, unless you're an upper echelon receiver like Jefferson or Chase, you can't always count on them to stay constant year to year. So, you take away Addison's, so like half of Addison's touchdowns, like the rate in which he catches touchdowns is league average. Like you're looking at like a wide receiver three that probably never hits your starting, not never, rarely hits your starting lineup outside of injuries or buys. So I at the time of the trade when Tyler dealt Jordan Addison, I was ecstatic for him that he got a first round pick out of it. But then obviously Jordan Addison ended up going off. He had a lot of touchdowns the back half of the year. So yeah, I think Addison's kind of a polarizing player, it sounds like, but I would definitely skew towards the not a huge fan as opposed to huge fan.
Yeah,
Tyler, do you have any
like
other thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Cevan.
I was just gonna say, personally for 2025, this one season, I would bet on him finishing lower than what was he last year? If we want to go off points
It's,
per game,
it's on the screen.
well, what do we want to go off? Points per game or fantasy or average?
Points per
Either
game.
one. I would bet on him being lower than wide receiver 26 than higher, just based on kind of what Reed was saying, the touchdowns not being sticky. Like he had 10 touchdowns his rookie year and his second year. And I don't McCarthy is not going to throw for 35 touchdowns or 4,300 yards this year. It's just not going to happen. I don't have the stat because technically he's not a rookie, but that would be breaking all of the rookie records. I know it'll be his first year starting, but yeah, I don't know. He is a polarizing player.
hmm Tyler, as a former owner of Jordan Addison, do you want to weigh in here?
This is one of those guys where you don't necessarily have to know the stats to have your feelings or to draw an opinion, but man, I hated watching Jordan Addison play football, or maybe it's just the Viking style of football, because I'd be watching all game begging and pleading for targets for Addison, and it's just so frustrating to watch. And then just for him in the fourth quarter or something to catch a 40-yard bomb on a blown coverage, and that felt like probably felt like that happened more times than it did, but I just felt like Jordan Addison was so boom or bust, and it was so frustrating for me to try and play his matchups because it didn't really matter. He was either going to have the big play or he wasn't, and so that's where I'm at with Addison. I think, but he's perfectly fine to be starting week in, week out, and you're going to get your games with him. And when you do, I mean, those are nice. They hit pretty good, so.
Was Tyler, do you remember, did you trade him the week of the trade deadline or was it before that?
I think it was for that. But at
Okay.
the time, his stock was a bit lower, and so yeah, I remember the first round offer. I was like, I'll take that, and then yeah, he had a great second half of the season, and
Yeah,
I
right
was
after you traded him away, he went crazy.
Yeah. I was gonna
yeah,
say like I don't know when you traded him, but like the trade deadline was week 12 and you said it was before that. So let's just say you traded him after week 10 or week 11. Like prior to week 12 when he went crazy against the Bears, he only had one game with more than 3 catches. So like
yeah,
you're right in the way that like week 3, 3 for 72 and a touchdown. And then week 4, 3 for 36 and no touchdowns. 3 for 66 and no touchdowns. Then he gets a game where he's 3 for 61 and a touchdown. He puts up 15 points. And yeah, like you said, the volume is not constant, or at least was not constant for him last year until the second of the half. And then, after you trade him, 8 targets, 9 targets, 6 targets, 12, 9,
yeah.
8, 8. So like the volume did tick up after you traded him, and that's just a frustrating one to go through. So yeah, that's my worry. When you go to McCarthy, the volume's going to go down. How sticky do the touchdowns stay this from year to year? And if the touchdowns don't stay, you're looking at a guy who's probably not startable without more volume. So
I looked this up real quick, and he had 7 games in single digits out of 15, and only had one game above 10 points in a game he did not score a touchdown. Um, I know you were talking about trading, or he obviously had a better second half of the year, which is interesting because the first half of the year, notably, they didn't have Hawkinson. And so when he was the obvious wide receiver two on the or second option is when he had his super low volume. And then once they got Hawkinson back, he upticked in production, which is kind of a strange comparison, but
Kind of sounds similar to the Pickens situation where Pickens isn't going to hurt Ferguson that much because he's going to open up the field for him. Maybe it's that type of situation, notoriously. Because I heard Jake Ferguson was going to be a top three tight end this year.
I heard it too. I
I
think
heard it.
Tyler said it.
Yeah. Okay. Before we move off wide receivers, we haven't talked about Zay Flowers much. As I said, we were going to. I thought he was on some of the accolades, but he's not. So, DaShaun, give us your thoughts on Zay Flowers for the 25 season.
Um, Zay Flowers, I really like him. Obviously, I just traded for him from Tyler, but I am a little scared post trade. Um,
You just
obviously,
made this trade like 3 days ago.
I know, I know. I will say, I really do believe in. I believe in him for the most part. It's just one Zay is a very small receiver. So I'm scared. I mean, scared about injury, but he's played all of it, all his game, but one I think the last 2 years. So he stayed healthy, so that's good to see. But I don't. I really believe in Lamar to have another year, like last year, and maybe potentially even win MVP this year. Um, I don't like Rashad Bateman in the mix there. I think that's been hindering Zay Flowers a lot. Yeah, he's the number one receiver, but they just don't pass the ball. Like, um, and then when you're sharing targets with other people, it's just making it a lot. And then they have Mark Andrews still there. So, um, yes, do I think he'll be a productive receiver for me and probably honestly starting over Jordan Addison a lot of the time. Um, I think that it's a great value that Tyler got for what I gave him. I mean, he got a first round pick and maybe someone he can start in Christian Kirk if he has a role on the Texans. So
It sounds
Oh,
like you regret this trade.
I don't regret it.
If it
No, I
got
actually don't
offered to you
regret it.
today, if Tyler offered you exactly what you sent him right now for Zay Flowers, would you accept it?
Um, Probably. I don't know. I don't know if he told you, but I accepted it really fast. Um, as soon as he sent it, almost. I didn't want him to pull it. So we didn't really have too many trade talks. It was just I sent an offer. He said what gets him to the deal, and I just accepted it right away. So I believe the first offer was just a first round pick for Zay, and then I offered Kirk on top, and then he wanted a little sprinkle, so we gave him the fourth round pick. But
let me give you the upshot real quick on Flowers. He's actually someone I feel the opposite about Addison, in that I love watching Zay Flowers play. I do think he's good. Uh, a quick stat here. So in 2023, Flowers had 77 receptions for 858 yards. Last year in 24, he had 74 receptions, so three less, and then 1,059 yards, which is about 200 more yards. So it's he was getting more yards last year on fewer receptions, or about the same amount of receptions. So I don't know if his average, or if he's somewhere in the middle there, you can expect like 950 yards, or if he trends more to 1,000 some yards. I don't know, but I think he's a great piece, and he I think is a bit more matchup proof than Addison is. And having watched a lot of Ravens football last year, they do manufacture touches for him, quite a few screens, and some of those screens can turn into big plays.
What a weird pod we're having right now is Tyler's talking up the player he traded away, and then DaShaun is talking down the player he just traded
I
for.
feel bad because we were like shitting on Genty and Caleb, and now he's talking, feeling bad about the Zay Flowers trade, and I'm just like, this is a great team. Zay Flowers is a good player. Sometimes maybe it doesn't need to be overthought.
I agree for the most part. I just think when it comes to the Ravens offense, they're always going to be a run first. Sorry, not always. They have been, and in the near future will continue to be a run first offense. And Lamar is great at throwing the ball, but they just don't do it as much as they probably could if, Derrick Henry wasn't there. So you take away, Lamar, I believe, had 41 touchdown passes this year, and Zay only caught four of them. So you take down the efficiency on the touchdowns. Zay, I just don't really see much more ceiling than he has now. But I think what he has, like the floor of, like you said, getting manufactured touches, really twitchy when he gets the ball, in a good offense that'll have a lot of chances to score. There's definitely upside, but unless he just like goes crazy with touchdowns one year, which is very possible. Again, the Ravens have a good offense. Like you're just not going to see more than like 1,000 or 1,100 yards. Like I just don't see a super high ceiling. But he is what he is, and what he is a 20 to wide receiver 20 to 25, and that's perfectly fine, honestly. I feel better about him than I do Jordan Addison, so
Yes, me
I'd agree
too.
with that as
Me
well.
too.
I do have a question. How do you guys feel about Jalen McMillan's future?
Let me touch on Zay, then we can go to McMillan.
Okay.
All I'll say on Zay is while Tyler laid out those stats, I mean the difference in yards per catch was 3 yards from his rookie year to his second year. And I think that directly correlates to the addition of Derrick Henry. I know it's often that running backs help quarterbacks, but I think this one directly, obviously, it helped Lamar, but I think it directly impacted Zay because more people in the box, you can hit Zay over the field, and he is a very fun player to watch with the ball in his hands. So, um, agreeing with Reed that I don't think there's much room for improvement. I think he's going to be an 80 and 1,000 guy and a few touchdowns. The way he does improve, if he does have a spike year in touchdown, if he gets 8, 9, 10 touchdowns in a year, that's how he's going to elevate as far as points per game and
If
total points. But I think Zay is a perfect flex option in addition to your team.
if you think about it, it sounds like he's pretty similar to Terry McLaurin in the way that like his ceiling is relatively capped in terms of the raw production, but the only thing that changed this year to make Terry a top 10 wide receiver is just touchdowns.
Yeah,
Obviously, the difference with Terry is he got better quarterback play, whereas Zay Flowers will never get better quarterback play than he has right now because Lamar is insane. So that's where I just kind of find it hard to see the ceiling. But like you said, a spike year in touchdowns turns 70 or 80 catches, 1,000 yards. It turns him from, wide receiver 24 to wide receiver 12 because he catches six more touchdowns. So
exactly. It's just weird with the amount of touchdowns that Lamar throws. It is just
how
never
do
to who you expect it to be. It's always
how did
some
he only
probably
catch four last year?
that
He threw
exactly like
41.
That's
Yeah.
I know.
that's why I was scared. That's just the
But
touchdowns.
touchdown, you can never bet on touchdowns. Touchdowns is just you never look at touchdowns. If it happens, it
But
happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like Mark
four
Andrews
for a
had,
wide receiver one
I-
is just
yeah, but Mark Andrews had a quarter of them.
Hmm.
Likely had another. I
Justice
don't know,
Hill,
five to
baby.
seven exactly. So I mean,
Yeah, it's
but it's a safe bet because we know Lamar is going to throw 30 plus every single year, and so maybe one year Zay is just on the positive end of that and he's getting 8, which could happen because he's a candidate to take one to the house anytime he touches the ball.
Lamar's only thrown for 30 plus touchdowns twice in his career, just so you know.
Really?
Yeah, last year and then his first MVP year. Like two years ago, like 23 when he won MVP, he only had 24 touchdowns. It was a down year for MVPs. His like last year was way better statistically than it was when he won MVP in 23. But either way, I think we all kind
Sorry
of
for
agree
lying.
on Zay Flowers. So, there was one other person that oh yeah, McMillan. Anyone have any strong thoughts on McMillan?
I don't.
I liked his path until they took Egbuka. I do see a world where Godwin is just toast, and this is Mike Evans' last year. So he's definitely a hold, probably. And I could see a path in 2026 where it's him and Egbuka.
Yeah,
yeah. He also ended the year last year very well.
He
I
was
a
a
lot of
touchdown
touchdowns.
guy, though.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of touchdowns.
He was
So
like Nick Westbrook Akine,
Ha, the goat.
like he was just catching a touchdown every week, but it was on super low volume. So I don't know. I thought he had a solid rookie year, but I don't see the injury is literally his only way to
Yeah.
relevance this year, in my opinion.
Just no way to any volume. Like even in a good offense, like there's just no way
Yeah.
to any volume unless, like you said, Godwin's toast. I don't see Mike Evans ever playing anywhere else other than the Buccaneers. So I would feel pretty confident he'll resign after his contract expires. But yeah, Egbuka is going to be a big part of the offense. They made sure of that when they picked him there. Godwin, like even if McMillan's wide receiver three, like on the team, like if Godwin is just like apparently he's not even for sure going to play in week one. Like even if he's not playing, I don't know if the volume is high enough in the Buccaneers offense to give him consistent like flex appeal. So
Yeah, because I mean they still have K Dot too, who was very reliable once all the receivers got hurt.
hmm
Baker hyper targets his running backs. So I don't know,
yeah,
there's a lot. I mean the only thing certain right now, in my opinion, is Mike Evans and then Egbuka slash Godwin and the running backs.
that's like the entire offense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we can't spend any more time on the receivers. We've talked about all of them. I like Olave more than you said, so if you want to trade Olave, I'm interested. But we need to move on here. Tight ends, just like the quarterbacks and the running backs, a very slim room, but a very talented room. I believe we talked about all three of these guys. Does anybody have anything else to say on the room here of tight ends?
I like it. I think it's good. It's that's it. I don't have
Proper
any.
analysis.
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's a high upside room. I think it's gonna probably struggle early, and I wouldn't be surprised if DaShaun tries to make a or trade for a band-aid, just someone who's scoring points in season because it's sketchy at this point.
Indeed. DaShaun, any thoughts?
Um, I don't know about a trade. That's I don't really. There's not many. I don't know. I mean, it just be make no sense. There's not many productive tight ends. Um, one that are available and two, um, that have better upside and than Loveland or anybody that's really
Mhm.
on the team. So I don't really see a trade happening, Cevan, but I do agree it's not the best room, but I like the potential. That's about it.
Yep. I have no other comments. Kyle Pitts, over under tight end 12 this year. Is he a tight end one? Rapid fire. Savan, yes or no?
No.
Jashawn, yes or no?
I'm gonna say no.
Tyler, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I'm a yes as well. We're 50-50. Go Kyle Pitts. The diamonds are just
Actually,
within reach.
I'm changing to yes because if he's a top 12 tight end, Drake London's going to be a top 12 receiver, and that means the quarterback is doing something good.
How does Kyle Pitts being a top 12 tight end mean Drake London's going to be a top 12 receiver?
No, I'm saying Drake is going to be a top 12 receiver. So
Okay,
uh that means Penix is supporting two top 12 pass catchers.
good to know. I mean, he got Rome Odunze drafted in the top 10, so if that doesn't tell you what he's capable of, then I don't
That
know
is
what does.
true.
Okay, position groups wrapped up. We're going right into our hot takes. Deshaun's hot take is about as spicy as a freezer
Tyler,
burrito here. It's just like as cold as it gets. Trey Harris, top 20 wide receiver. I think I might fall asleep while we talk about this. So Deshaun, tell us why Trey Harris is going to be a top 20 wide receiver.
Um, just the situation. I mean, it's kind of obvious. I mean, it's very possible. Um, yeah, it's really I don't know. Savan, this was a hard thing to do for me. I had like seven different hot takes, and Savan didn't like any of them.
I heard
So
of some of them and I agree
they
with
weren't
Savan.
hot.
Yeah. I mean this is barely even hot. I mean, it seems like you just said it's pretty realistic. So is it even a hot take?
not really.
This no, this
I
is
think
hot.
I added something. I had Caleb being a top 10 quarterback on here as well. I guess it just Savan just hadn't added it, but um, yeah, no, it's not really. I wouldn't say it's a hot take, but I wouldn't say it's like a clear cut.
Well, yeah, it's not the expectation per se, but it's also not Jake Ferguson
All
as a
right,
top
what if
three
we?
tight end
Yes.
level
Yeah,
of spice. It's I sorry, I was harsh. It's a perfectly fine hot take. It's just not as spicy as I was hoping for your own team.
yeah, I
That's
got
fair.
you.
I think that's my stance. I don't mind the hot take. Like in a great you know, I don't know if I could see him being a top 20 wide receiver without an injury to Lad, but in the right situation, like as we've all talked about already, a smash situation, player's fun.
So just to be clear, we don't have to digress on this too much, but Marvin Harrison last year finished as wide receiver 29, and none of us think he had a terrible year or anything. So I think Trey Harris, top 20 wide receivers, like it doesn't have to be like some obscure way to think about it for it to be a hot take. I think this is perfectly hot in my opinion. I think this would
It's a
be
fine take.
pretty. I mean, yeah, I would be. I think this is a great take, and I don't think it'll happen. But if it does, that's great news for DaShaun.
Okay. Now we're going to spice level maximum.
Okay.
Just kidding. It's not that maximum, but it's pretty high. Cevan says DaShaun misses the playoffs with his reasoning that he'll get into being too many players with wide ranges of outcomes for it to all come together to make the playoffs. So, Cevan, given that half the league makes the playoffs, why is DaShaun going to miss the playoffs?
Okay. So when I was thinking of my hot take, I was just staring at Deshaun's team up and down. You could say I was beating his drum of his team if you want, milking his team
Some say
rather.
that.
Um, no, and on a serious note, so breaking down the rooms, obviously he already had a QB1 last year with Bo Nix, and I touched on earlier how there is a realistic, maybe not a realistic, sorry. There's a I don't want to say non-zero. I think last year Bo was closer to his ceiling, so fine, whatever. His quarterback room, it has depth, whatever. Running backs are good. Um, Touching on Tyler's point with just kind of the unknown of Ashton Jeanty. I know people bring up the competition. He played at Boise State. Um, we just haven't seen it with Jeanty. And then you go back 3 years ago, or 4 3 seasons, Barkley was labeled as injury prone. Reed touched on him getting, I think he said 400, was it 430 or 450 touches?
It's
One or the
somewhere
other.
in there. I don't have the exact number when you include the playoffs.
Yeah. He's 28, going to be 29 in season, coming off almost 500 touches in a season, and at once having an injury prone label. A-Chain, his rookie year, riddled with injuries. Last year, he was able to stay healthy. The Dolphins look like they're falling apart this offseason. So, not that that's against A-Chain. I'm just saying he has a very real chance to be. He's already had 2 concussions in the league. He's had multiple lower body injuries. And not to mention he's undersized, 5'9", 190 pounds. Uh, then you go to his receiver core. Lamb, nothing to talk about on Lamb. We touched on Jordan Addison and Zay and how they're Jordan specifically is like a hit or miss type guy. Cortland Sutton's 30 and just had his best season in his career after the previous uh 4 seasons not being higher than wide receiver 35. I know he just got a quarterback, but there's cause of concern there. Uh, Tight ends, Pitts, he hasn't been what we all thought he would. Colson Loveland has a wide range of outcomes. And then I don't think he has, or adding Zay really helped, but we already touched on Chris Olave. He's had a bunch of concussions. He's one away. Um, and then just a bunch of other guys on his team, you don't see a role. To me, if he could start his starting lineup at 100%, 17 games played, I think there's no doubt he would be uh, a solid team. I just think there's way too much risk in all of the players outside of CeeDee Lamb. I think it's way too risky of a team to expect, and not that you should expect everything to go right. I just think there's more than the average team's risk would have, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
That was quite a monologue for the second week in a row.
Yeah, sorry.
DaShaun, we're going to go to you last here because I have some thoughts as well. I think this is just kind of the risk you run. Like I think we all agree that his team overall is very talented at the top and the depth, the bench itself, I feel like it's deep, but not a whole lot of guys that you feel like have concrete roles right now. So when you have a top heavy team, I talked about it a little bit in my playoff odds last week, where I feel like his playoff odds are lower than people that I have ranked it below him, but his championship odds are higher because the top end talent that he has with good injury luck is at the top of the league, like arguably one or two. But I also, like someone kind of mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty with some of his bench pieces. You always have the injury risk for certain guys. So, one or two key injuries, and suddenly he's starting guys that nobody should want to start during the year. So I don't agree that I wouldn't say I think he's going to miss the playoffs. Like I said, I had him as my number 3 or 4 team, but I could also see a world where, one or two injuries and suddenly, yeah, he's in a bad spot. So, but to be fair, that applies to basically anyone. Anyone in the league has one or two injuries to key players. I just don't think his depth is as deep. But again, when you invest in such in the high end players, then that's kind of what you're going to have, and that's a perfectly fine strategy to go for. So, Tyler, before we go to DaShaun, did you have any thoughts on the take here?
Uh,
Um, oh, my bad.
Wait, did you say Tyler or
Well,
Deshaun?
Yeah,
I thought,
Tyler, you go first. We're gonna go to DaShaun
Okay,
last.
okay. This is probably a little too much hating from Cevan, in my opinion. I Deshaun's team is my second favorite in the league. Um, I mean, I get it. It is a hot take. It's not my hot take. It's not for me. I think for this to happen, it would be a pretty low percentile
Hmm.
of luck for Deshaun.
Okay, DaShaun, tell Cevan why he's an idiot.
um, I mean, like you said, I think that goes for any team, like especially your team, Cevan. Like, if any of your starting lineup, I don't think you have a bench to even really plug in a whole lot of players. Um, but I mean, that goes for any team, in my opinion. So I don't know if I really it's true, but then you could say injury scare about any other teams as well. So like I don't know.
Okay, Cevan's hot take, controversial. Let's get to mine here. I think that Ashton Genty will not be in his Week 14 starting lineup. And let
Is he
me
on bye?
explain. Not only am I a little bit lower on Genty than everybody else, I think it's important to note that I'm not necessarily saying that Ashton Genty is going to be garbage this year, because that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm trying to say is, let me pull this up real quick. In week 14, so again, the last week before the playoffs, and presumably in most cases, a gotta have it week for a lot of teams. They will be playing the Broncos, which is a loaded defense. A lot of new pieces on the Raiders. The Raiders offense could struggle this year. We don't know. And he's playing 3 running backs here, which in a full PPR league is not always ideal because you're getting a full point for reception. A lot of times people prefer to start receivers there. So add in the fact that injury is possible, not likely, but possible. They're playing a really good defense. He's starting 3 running backs when he already has 2 other elite ones. I think that Ashton Genty will not be in his final regular season lineup and potentially a gotta have it game.
I like this because this is like you can make as big or as little deals of this as you want. And I think, yeah, that's a great reason. I mean, nothing wrong with wanting to play Saquon and Achan, assuming they're not on bye, I guess I don't know. And then
I didn't look at
just
that. That would really fall apart if one of those two was on bye.
and then just yeah, filling out all the flex spots with, his multiple wide receivers. So I think this is pretty niche, but I love it.
Cevan, DaShaun, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I see. I was already. I don't know if Genty will start. Um, to be fair, every week in general. Other than week 14, just for that reason. One, we don't know what he's gonna do, and then two, obviously receivers score more points, and then I have Addison, and then if Olave comes out and he is we already know he's a very good receiver, and hey, maybe Shuck can support that. Now, do I think that? Absolutely not. But if that comes the case, then yeah, that I'm absolutely not starting Ashton Genty, um, or one of the running backs in that scenario. So,
Cevan,
Yeah.
any thoughts?
For me, I know this whole offseason when DaShaun and I talk fantasy, he just harps on how he loves uh Barkley, Genty, and A-Chain, and like his plan, at least up until we recently talked, was to go into the season with those 3 running backs in the lineup with the lack of receiver depth. So for him to switch up on the strategy. I know a bunch of things would have to happen for Genty not to pan out or be in his lineup. But if this were to happen, um, I would start to feel real worried about Ashton if he's the one not making the lineup over. That would be over two running backs and two receivers. Um, so
So four
he'd have to.
receivers, presumably. Well, you know,
I mean,
you're right. Well,
yeah,
his third and fourth receivers per se.
yeah. So over four players you take over the consensus 101. I would start to feel real worried. But I don't think I don't know. This would be an interesting one because we would know a lot sooner in the season if this is going to be the case, in my opinion.
Probably, yeah. I'm not saying this will be like the first week he gets benched.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I get what
So,
you're saying.
yeah, well, a little bit lower stakes here, but I thought it was fun just because Tyler and I have kind of been harping on Genty here. But like I said, them adding the fact that they're playing a really good defense that week, I thought it was a fun one. So, last hot take here, Tyler, the self-proclaimed king of hot takes, he says that Caleb Williams and Bo Nix will flip their quarterback finishes from 2024, where Caleb Williams finishes as quarterback 7 or better, while Bo Nix finishes as quarterback 17 or worse. Tyler, talk us through it.
Yeah, so just a little note here. This is using our league adjusted scoring. So Caleb Williams did finish at that 17 spot, and Nick's finished at that QB7 spot. And to zoom out just a little bit, I think this takes a little bit, like if you want to put it more general terms, it's me saying that DaShaun will pretty much have the same quarterback production, just in a different way, like the opposite way. And I don't think this take is about one or the other more heavily. So this is not like Caleb Williams propaganda or Bo Nix slander specifically. It's about the both of them here. So we've talked about Williams quite a bit. His nickname on ProFootballReference.com is Superman. And I think Williams can be Superman this year. He only threw 6 interceptions last year with also only 20 touchdowns. We've talked about the receiving core. I think that's all set up there for him. New coaching staff, and offensive line improvements as well. I will talk about Bo Nix a little bit more, and I kind of saved my thoughts for this because I knew I had this coming. Bo Nix last year finished as QB7, and the Broncos' offensive line is largely unchanged. They're bringing back all the same anchors that were there. Um, so that is one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. However, they also did draft RJ Harvey, and rushing was kind of an issue for the Broncos last year. They became a little bit one-dimensional, and that the offense was through Bo Nix, whether it was him passing or him rushing as well. He had 430 rushing yards last year, 4 rushing touchdowns. And we did see, as we mentioned earlier, CJ Stroud really excel in his rookie year and then struggle in his sophomore year. And so I think when the Broncos haven't brought in too many other receiving weapons, I mean, Pat Bryant, sure, I guess, maybe. I think the Broncos passing game could take a hit. You know, the the book is out on Bo Nix now. Teams will have time to adjust, and we've seen that they can and will adjust to young players that have success. And I think Bo Nix rushing upside will also take a hit. I don't think he will reach 400 rushing yards this year with RJ Harvey, Estime, and McLaughlin there. I think the Broncos offense will try to become a little bit more balanced between rushing and passing here. So I think yeah, like I said, I think there's similar production here. The quarterback position, which was good for DaShaun last year, I just think it comes, mostly at the hands of Caleb Williams, and Bo Nix struggles this year. And obviously, this isn't counting Geno Smith and anything. Just wanted to isolate these two here.
Hmm. Obviously, we always love an Audric Estime reference.
That's right.
Second round pick. But before I give my thoughts, Cevan, why don't we kick it to you first? What do you think here?
Very interesting take. Um, I am trying to find Stroud
Stroud finished as
Stroud was
QB
18.
18. Yep.
Yeah. And going to look at his 2023. 2023, Stroud was QB, he was QB 10. So he dropped 8 spots. Not that that's a direct correlation, but I was just trying to merge your
Sure.
the NFL has film on him. Yeah. Um, I would love this because that means Caleb is playing good, and at the end of the day, if the Bears are winning, I'm happy. So if you don't want grumpy monkas, then this is the take for me. But I was looking guys in that range. Last year would have been like Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Jordan Love. Um, and those are fine NFL quarterbacks, though. There's a world where Bo Nix still has a good year, just not for fantasy. And so that is all in the realm of possibilities because I think we all would agree Matt Stafford is an upper echelon quarterback. Um, maybe not Aaron Rodgers as much, but Jordan Love's solid. So if you're telling me Bo Nix is just going to have a little sophomore slump fantasy wise, but with the reality that he could still have a good NFL year, I mean, that's all on the table. And then everything we've already talked about on Caleb, I see him improving from QB 17 anyway. So definitely a hot take, but I see the route that this comes to fruition.
DaShaun, quick thoughts from you. What do you think?
Um, I don't hate this take at all. I almost, I really honestly don't even know if I think it's a hot take. I think that Bo is definitely due for some regression. I just think that last year it he did really well, but I don't see it coming in and doing the same thing at that level maybe again this year. Um, that's just a gut feeling. There's no real reason why. Um, and then obviously we know we want Caleb to do better, and I really do think he will with Ben Johnson and everybody. But yeah, no, I will say I don't know about Knicks falling. I think regression, but down to 17. Um, I just don't think with that offense, the coaching. I think I like the situation way more than the Texans with Stroud. Really, honestly, and
Yeah.
I just like the situation better. So that's one thing I might not agree on. I don't think the regression will be maybe as far as 10 spots. But I do think that he's not maybe not going to be a top 10 quarterback next year. So
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I tried to be specific with my numbers here, and because 10 spots is a lot, like you're saying, and I'm including and in there is I think makes it kind of that Potter take. Whereas I think realistically they pull both probably finish around QB 10, probably somewhere near each other. But
which one of these finishes, for everybody to answer, which one of these finishes do we think is less likely? Do we think it's less likely that Caleb finishes as a top 7 quarterback or less likely that Bo Nix finishes 17 or worse?
I think it's less likely that Knicks will finish 17 or worse.
yeah,
yeah, I'm probably there too. Same for you, Reed? I'd assume so because he's your MVP.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was going to try to argue because I'm also not as high as you guys on Caleb, but Bo Nix finishing at QB 17 or worse would be quite shocking to me. A lot more shocking than Caleb. So, okay, hot takes finished up. Last slide here. Playoff odds. Cevan, 62% for the playoffs and 12% chance to be a top 2 team to make the championship game. Give us very briefly, because we've been running long here, Cevan, your thoughts on your odds.
Yeah, well, I'm usually running long anyways. So, with the 62% playoffs, that like I said earlier, I believe I have him settled at fifth overall in the power rankings, and so I kind of just have it all um, based on that, and so that's why I'm a little lower than you guys because I know you guys have him top 3 or 4. And then yeah, just with the 12% championship, It's a percentage, and there is some people that have zero, so be grateful you got a percentage.
I don't know if I don't know that's how that works.
Well, I just the 62 is kind of crazy when your hot take was not making it at all.
Yeah, that's why it's a hot
Yeah,
take.
a hot take. I don't view hot takes as something that's like, yeah, I think this is definitely going to happen.
Yeah,
But it's like compared to what maybe people think, this is less, or I think this is more likely to happen than people think it is, I guess. Because like, well, yeah, like I agree. Like I said, Savon's going to miss the playoffs. Do I think there's a better than a coin flip chance that Savon makes the playoffs? Probably. But I could also see a world where he doesn't. I think that's where hot takes are kind of up for interpretation.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
fair.
So I had 70% playoffs and 26% championship. Notably, I'll say that my odds for the playoffs didn't change much at all after the Zay Flowers trade, but his championship odds did go up, and those came at the expense of Tyler. Obviously, he's the one who traded Zay Flowers, but I think Zay Flowers doesn't add a ton as far as like his like ability to make the playoffs. Like I feel like honestly, I could see a world where Zay does not see a starting lineup that much, but I think in a world where Zay does go crazy with touchdowns, that does end up helping his championship odds more than it does his playoff odds. So, yeah, like I said, I have him as my number 3 or 4 team. I don't remember exactly which one, but really solid playoff odds. About a quarter chance to be a top 2 team, and I think that's a really good spot to be in. Um, Tyler, you're the highest on him, almost 80% playoff odds and nearly a third of a chance to be a top 2 team, but he's not in the favorites. That's wild.
I mean, again, it's like I've keep saying it.
Glaze him and Will, his team is so good.
Yeah, I have another team that I have in just in a different tier, but I mean, yeah, it's my second ranked team, and I'm not gonna bet on what injuries do or don't happen. And so I think this is an elite team. Like DaShaun said at the beginning of the episode, there are no real holes here. And so I think this will be a scary team for anyone in the league to face. And if put gun to my head and forced me to pick another favorite, sure, it's probably DaShaun's team. But for the sake of this podcast, he remains a contender for me. But albeit with the second highest playoff and odds or and championship odds for me.
Okay.
Appreciate.
Deshaun, any thoughts on our playoff odds before we wrap into final thoughts?
Um, I wouldn't say. I think everybody is playoff. Well, I wouldn't say everybody, but everybody's pretty close to playoff contention. I guess I do have a question on how like you gauge like the percentage for a championship. Like, how do you like?
It's so what we do for these is I just set up a little sheet and we fill out each team's playoff odds. And by championship, we just mean like being like make the championship game, like a top 2 team, not necessarily to win the championship.
Okay,
Um,
makes okay.
Yeah, because if we thought you had a 25 to 30% chance of winning the championship, you would be like
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I
far
was
and
like,
away the favorite.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, no, and then we just have it so it all adds up to where you have, like if 6 teams make the playoffs, and at the end of the year, if 6 teams make the playoffs, each team has a 100% chance of making the playoffs. So we basically divvy up 600% of playoffs, and then 200% of championships, and this is how ours kind of split for you here. So, and that's why we didn't ask you to do it because then you'd have to go through and do it for the whole league, and that's just kind of a hassle. So we
Yeah.
just wanted to get your thoughts on ours. So, leading into some final thoughts here, I think this is fun because week 1, it's Tyler versus DaShaun. Cevan, who do you what do you think Tyler's odds are to pull a week 1 upset?
Without looking at the matchup, I mean, I know your guys' teams. Uh, I would probably. Ooh, um, I need to
Don't
give
look
me
at
a dollar
sleepers win.
bill.
Don't look at sleepers win percentage.
No, I'm
Do it
not.
right off
I'm
the
not.
dome.
I need to give me a dollar bill. Um, I would probably say it's like 43% chance that Tyler wins.
Wow. You are the sleeper bot because sleeper has 44% right
Swear?
now.
I swear I didn't look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Whatever, buddy.
No, on pickles.
Wow. That's pretty serious.
Okay, I didn't. But yeah, I mean that checks out.
Yeah. It
Tyler's
should be
gonna
a
be an
fun.
underdog all year, and he's gonna love it every single second
Tyler
of it.
I
loves the chip
am.
on his shoulder.
My My team's been here before. They made the playoffs last year. I'll take myself week one.
And then you put a couple more chips on their shoulder, and all of his guys end up in the retirement home from the weight on their shoulders.
I got all I know is I got DaShaun week 8, 2 months into the season, and only player on our teams right now that's on bye is Saquon. So it's good.
I have DaShaun in week 5. So obviously I'll be 4-0 at that point. So like by the time we get there, my season will basically already be wrapped up. So, oh, and I get him with Caleb Williams on bye. So that's nice.
Gino.
Gino, baby.
But I also have Drake London on bye, who's probably arguably a bigger loss. Or
Definitely a
Luther
big
Burden at that
loss.
point might be the Bears wide receiver 1.
Ooh, spicy.
Okay, any other final thoughts from anybody, DaShaun?
Not really. Uh, think that we pretty much got all of it.
Tyler,
Uh,
Cevan, any last wrap-up thoughts here?
Of course, I always got some.
Oh
So I
boy.
think moral of the story is we all like DaShaun's team. We all think it's super top heavy, but we like all the position groups. He's definitely a contender at worst, and I know he's been talking shit all off season after missing the playoffs, being the only one on this podcast to miss the playoffs.
Mm,
Um,
tough blow.
yeah, and all I hear now is I'm going to win the championship. Your team sucks. Blah 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 blah. Well, when week 8
though
comes
I will
around,
say I have been
well, let
talking.
me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. When week 8 comes around, I expect all that off-season smoke to come back to the top, and it's gonna be swirly 8 week all day in the Discord chat.
That's okay.
Tyler, anything last to say here?
I'm good. This was fun. Good team. Fun to talk
Awesome.
about.
There is the DaShaun team breakdown. We will see you next week for another team breakdown. Maybe on the favor of the league. We'll see. Will depend see how excited Tyler gets next week if we talk about him. So we will see you next week.